and most welcome guests. This evening I have a story to tell you about how I went from cynic to believer by facing some of my fears, and hopefully I'll be able to convince a few of you to do the same. When I was 4 years old, I started school, and up until that point I would eat any food that was put in front of me. The only thing I had ever rejected was milk once it stopped being given to me via the bottle. However, throughout my school years, I became more and more picky, and I ate less and less things until my diet became very limited. Actually got to the point that whenever I tried to try new foods, my body would start reacting badly, I would start getting nervous, and I would sometimes even be sick when I tried something new. I didn't really see this as a problem. In fact, I actually took advantage of it most of the time. I used to take the lunch that my mum so lovingly made for me, take it into pieces and sell it on so that I could buy citrus polos, chips and burgers, which were the only things I wanted to eat. Then, moving on into my late teens, I moved in with my friends and some university students that I was living with, and it became quite apparent that my adversity to eating new foods was even worse than I thought. As slowly but surely they tried loads of new foods and I started eating crackers, cheese and soup noodles. And during that time I made no sedulous effort to improve my diet and eat new things. Instead, I carried on eating the same unvaried diet, other than when my friends managed to peer pressure me into eating some new things. For example, I had pizza for the first time ever when I was 19 years old. I had eaten solid cheese my whole life, but I'd never been brave enough to have melted cheese. Still though, I didn't see this as an issue. It didn't feel like it was holding me back. So I did nothing to try and solve it. Then, it did start to hold me back. Around 5 years ago, I was at a Christmas party with new colleagues, and someone was bringing round plates of food for you to try, little canapes, while you're introducing yourself to new colleagues. And someone handed me a mince pie. I thought, that is brilliant. It's the first mince pie of the Christmas period. I can't wait. Took a bite into it. Spat it out in front of everyone, these people I'd only really just met. And it was because I bit into it expecting the sweet mince pies that you get from the shop, and it had mincemeat, warm mincemeat in it, and that's what my body does when I try new foods. It just crumples up. So this was a restriction. It's the first time I started to notice it. And then it progressively got worse. That made me scared of trying any new foods, especially in front of new people, because it could be very embarrassing. And a few years later, I went out for a team meeting to a steak restaurant. It wasn't just any steak restaurant. It's a steak restaurant that served every kind of meat you can imagine other than beef. Now, in the build-up, I was nervous, I was anxious. It's a team of 24 people. I needed to look good, and I was scared I wasn't going to. So I settled myself down and my nerves on the grounds I was going to order horse. Because a lot of people would have you believe horse tastes just like beef. However, when I got there, I was presented with 8 cocktail sticks with little cubes of meat and little coloured flags. And it turned into a who's got the biggest balls contest and who's going to try the most amounts of meat, which basically is my worst nightmare because everyone's looking at you and I have no idea what any of it is. So I started sweating, started getting anxious, and then they came out to take orders and they didn't have any horse. Okay, what's closest to cow that you've got then? Zebra? No, you haven't got any zebra. Okay, well, you should try moose. Moose? You want me to eat moose? Okay, I sat there biting my nails, sweating, starting to shake, until a colleague of mine noticed how nervous I was getting, took me outside and helped to calm me down, and he got a win out of it because he came and sat next to me and ate my food, so I didn't have to tell anyone what was going wrong with me. After that evening, I decided it was time to take action. It's time I have to do something about this. It's holding me back. Team meetings, we have to go somewhere that Paul will eat. I'm embarrassed to go out with people for meals, and I get frightened every time a menu's coming and I don't know what's going to be on it. It needed to change. So what are my options? I could carry on trying new things in peer pressure ways like I was at university, and it just becomes more and more painful experience. Or I could seek help. And a former colleague of mine who had had similar issues around food recommended that I get hypnotised. Now, I'm a scientist. I believe in black and white, and unless you can show me solid proof, I don't really believe in things like hypnosis. So I kind of fobbed her off and thought, it's not going to work for me. It might have worked for you, but I don't really believe it, so it's not going to work for me as much as I'd like it to. Then, 12 weeks ago, I went along to a life coaching session with my work in Watford, expecting it to be how to improve my sales pitch, how to improve your career, etc. But it wasn't. It turned into a session where a lady called Jaques, who's an NLP practitioner, was able to help a colleague of mine overcome a fear that had really been restricting her, way worse than mine, in her life, in the space of just 15 minutes. She didn't completely overcome it, but she became a lot less nervous about it. And I thought, what the hell, I'm just going to go and ask her whether she thinks she can help me with my problem. She stood there and sounded like, yeah, that'll be fine, yeah, we can do that. And I said, even though I don't really believe you can do it, she said, do you want to do it? And I said, yes, I do. So I went along for a session with her to get hypnotised, and I was expecting this. Oh yeah, right, what you got for me? I'll try any food that you like, any food you want. But it wasn't that. It was a 90-minute session where she grilled me on all the experiences that I had in a lot more depth than I've explained today. And at the end, she put me into a trance and then a hypnosis to try and make me more calm and less likely to have that retching reflex whenever I'm going to try something new. And I went away from that session and I felt more confident that that wasn't going to happen to me. And 2 days later, I was put in a situation where I had to test it. I was out with 2 partners of my business and we went for lunch. Normally in that situation, I would do one of 3 things. I would say I'm not hungry, I would ask for something on the menu but ask for it plain, or I would look for chips on the menu and just order chips. But this time I didn't. I ordered the special sandwich for the day. It had 6 or 7 different ingredients that I'd never had before, which would normally completely terrify me. Ate through the whole thing and really enjoyed it, and walked out feeling like I was on cloud 9. However, I didn't yet feel like I wanted to put myself in that situation voluntarily to try something. So the next stage, I went back to her and she tapped into something special in me that I wasn't aware existed, and that is my sense of adventure. In every other walk of life, I will take every opportunity I can to step out of my comfort zone and try and learn something. But food, I was completely cagey and the complete opposite of that. And she tried to tap into my feelings and make me feel a bit more adventurous about food. I left that session excited. And I rang up my cousin straight away and to tell her we were going to go and have sushi, because she remembers the last time she had sushi and I was there, I had to walk out of the restaurant because I couldn't take it. And lo and behold, a few days later, I was eating sushi with her and I loved it. I then went out for a team meeting a couple of days later, and we went to an Indian restaurant, and my manager ordered all 9 starters, and I sat there pecking at all of it, even though I didn't know what any of it was, whilst I watched most of my colleagues' jaws hit the tables. And I life had completely changed. And I went back to Sue for the third time and told her I feel like I've crossed my final frontier. That was the last thing in my life that I felt like it was holding me back. And for that reason, I decided to come to you this evening and give you that speech, to ask you all the question: what fears do you have that you would like to remove? What fears do you have that are holding you back, and you really feel if you could overcome them, it would change your life? Take the steps, like I have, and find someone to help. There are life coaches, NLP practitioners. Get hypnotised. It could work for you, and it could completely change your life. Thank you.